Hikers slash park rangers of Reddit, what is the scariest slash creepiest thing that you have seen in the woods? Serious. Was camping with my Boy Scout troop at the time and woke up during the middle of the night to footsteps and breathing. It got louder and more footsteps started. My bunkmates were up too at this point. Then we start to hear huffing and animal noises. Turns out the field our campsite was at was in the middle of an apparent cow crossing. Had to be at least 30 of them walking by at once. Definitely a scary moment to wake up to in the middle of the night hearing a million footsteps and animal noises. FYI, cow pies everywhere the next morning. I live in a beach community with a maritime forest nearby, and while hiking about 40 years ago found a huge sea turtle hanging by its neck from a tree. I bet the shell was 4 feet across. I figured someone was hoping to recover the shell after the flesh had rotted away, but don't think the neck was going to hold up that long. Definitely weird. Desert park ranger here. Volunteers at one of my parks called us to report a still smoldering slash smoking car in one of our remote campsites. It was normal for stole cars to get abandoned and burned. We went to look, gawked a couple minutes while waiting for the fire department. After a couple minutes standing there, it became very apparent there was a body in the front seat. After an additional look around, food wrappers, rope, and numerous other strange items were found. It seems like whomever was in the front seat had been bound and shot. Police came and cleaned it up. Didn't find any answers. We refer to that as the haunted site now. It is the most popular in that tiny park. One of our cubicle farm chiefs got a call from a guy threatening to kill himself. He said he had a lot of guns and was going to end it, then gave a location close to our park. 2 of my coworkers got sent out to investigate. By the time they got there, another angering entity had found the scene first. They told my coworkers to leave before there was a ton of complicated paperwork they'd have to do. The guy had shot himself semi-successfully, then tried to walk for help. Large cleanup scene. Felt bad for the responding park ranger. She wasn't with us, but had just dealt with her husband, another ranger, killing himself the month before. She also found his body. By far the scariest thing I ran into though, I had just moved out there and was taking care of 2 parks by myself, both closed. These parks are about 30 miles from the nearest occupied houses, and, even then, those couple of homes are usually empty in the summertime. I decided to hop in my car and drive to the darker park to take in a meteor shower and learn to play my banjo, because that is totally normal and not creepy at all. I'm out there on a picnic table plucking away terribly under the stars and got this really uneasy feeling. My mind starts rattling off what ifs. Was that a shadow? What if someone shows up? What if someone is listening and starts singing "This is the burned car park"? What if they came back as I'm drowning in the silence with occasional string plucks? To distract myself, I hear muffled voices in the brush, quick mumbles, then rustling. My heart dropped and my neck grew cold. There is no way this will be a normal interaction. My eyes struggle with the dark, scanning bushes trying to find shapes. The sounds grow closer and seem eerily high-pitched. Children. What the fuck? Park ranger dies of heart attack. Found 3 days later still clutching banjo will be a good headline. That is the day I learned that coyotes have the run of the desert and don't have to worry about being quiet. 3 of them bound through the creosote bushes with a yip or 2. Pass me close. No fucks given. That is the last time I ever played the banjo there. Was in Big Bend National Park about 20 years ago prepping for a backpacking series presentation for EE. Big Bend is the western portion of Texas that dips downward along the bend of the Rio Grande that forms the border with Mexico. It's mixed high desert and smaller mountains. Gorgeous place, great history. I was hiking the area near Santa Elena Canyon, probably a couple of hours before sunset, to try and get pics for the presentation. This area of the park opens into a comparatively flat section of the basin, where the river broadens, and the wildlife tends to be more diverse and obvious there. Hence there I was. I was several hundred meters away from my van, which was parked in a designated lot at what passed for a trailhead at the time. As I approached the river basin near the mouth of the canyon, I saw something really unusual. So unusual in fact, that it took a few seconds for my brain to sort the puzzle. Something was moving on the other side of the river, and it was big. Man-sized, but low to the ground. The color of a deer maybe, and shuffling along. It looked, for first impression, to be a medium-sized white-tailed doe lying on its side, and moving like a snake, but that's not a thing that happens, so I moved a bit, to improve my line of sight. It was a mountain lion. A big cat. A big cat. It was creeping along, low slung, hunting something that was probably no more than a stone's toss from where I was standing. I'd never seen one before, and when the visual information finally passed I think my blood froze. Then it looked at me. I'll probably never forget that bit. You could see that little calorie calculator turn on in its eyes. I've never been so thankful for a river in my life. Granted at this time, and maybe still, the river was very low due to drought and unauthorized/unlawful irrigation practices upstream, and you could likely cross at several points at this location with minimal risk, but it was still quite broad and definitely looked the part of a potent water barrier. Death Kitty does a series of double takes, head shifting from me to whatever the prey location back and forth rapidly, said calorie counter and risk calculator trying to get a fix on this evening's menu. I die a little inside, maintain my facing, and begin slowly and quietly moving away. Not sure if I wasn't worth it, if the river was too much of an X factor, or if the big un just really wasn't that into me, but no chase was given, and after breaking line of sight, I was able to get back to the van just fine with no sign of pursuit and some mild tachycardia. That was the longest short walk I've ever taken. Later that night, I was parked off of the main park road in an area where big cats commonly hunted. I'll always remember being parked there, in the middle of nowhere, munching on slightly stale Oreos and a bottle of water, listening to the occasional growl or scream of a big cat peel out of the darkness, and being thankful for my relatively fortunate position on the food chain. Also one night I hallucinated on the quill, a side effect I regularly experience with the quills, after getting a respiratory illness, and woke up screaming. Told this story once before. The Trailside Killer. In Northern California, late 70s. Hiking with a friend. Came across him at a rock outcropping on Mount Tam. He gave off a very discomforting vibe, and we didn't hang around. We both independently recognized him when he was finally captured a few years later, and his picture was in the paper. If I'd been with my girlfriend, we might not be alive. I went running through a trail near my house one afternoon, headphones in and my mind elsewhere, just because I knew the path really well. I came around a bend, and through the gap in the trees about 20 feet in front of me, I locked eyes with a dead and rotting deer. Somehow, it was postured in a way that made it look as though the corpse was staring through me. I turned around and bolted out as fast as I possibly could. I worked as a tree planter in northern Ontario, living in tents in very remote parts of the forest, like hours away from civilization only accessible by logging roads. Strangest was from a fellow planter who found a backpack in the middle of his area with shoes, clothes, a wallet with a school lid and a film camera. How it ended up there is a total mystery, because this is no place for hiking or camping. Scariest for myself was waking up to my tent vestibule collapsed, and a large bear claw rip which I apparently slept through, as well as turning a corner to a large wolf about 10 feet away, and returning to a spot I'd planted about 5 minutes earlier to fresh mama bear and cub prints. Realizing a bear family had sauntered behind me while my back was turned was very unsettling, because you do not want to f with a bear and her cubs. Canadian wildlife is scary, yo. I was working at a remote mountaintop microwave radio site near Prince Rupert, BC in January. The road to the site was impassable even by snowcat due to deep snow drifts. I had to be dropped off by heli in the morning and get picked up at end of day. The building was small, single story, maybe 30x40 feet, windowless, with a metal front door. I'm buttering away with music on, but otherwise not making a lot of noise when there is a knock on the door. I thought it a bit odd someone else would be up here with me, but go onto the door. Nobody there. I go out and look around. Nope, nothing there, no prints or tracks. I figured maybe some ice had fallen and made a knocking sound. Go back inside and resume what I was doing. A couple minutes later there is a knocking on the door again, but longer duration this time. I open the door, nobody. I go out and look around, nothing. Go back to work. A minute later knocking again. This time it sounds like someone is angrily pounding on the door to be let in. This time I open the door with my crowbar in hand. There was no doubt someone was there. Open the door, nobody. WTF. Step out and look around, no sign of anyone again. I get the feeling somebody is watching me. I'm peering into the bush around me and see nothing. Something compelled me to look behind me, and that's when I met the amused gaze of a raven perched on the roof edge, centered above the front door. They squawked a happy rock and flapped off to the tree line. Arsehole.